PlayStation 4 Pro at its best. Well, the bang for the buck is pretty great. Let's put the system comparisons out of the way for a while and consider what it delivers. Specifically, it turns a relatively modest Radeon GPU into something that can achieve this, and this, and this. Some of the multiplats have fallen a little short, mind you, but with a hardware investment of $400 or under, getting results like this for your Ultra HD screen with a really decent array of titles available now, well, we've had some great times with the Pro, no doubt about it. Whether it's delivering native 4K or not, it doesn't really tend to matter in the best games if you've got a 4K screen, preferably of the HDR variety, and you're invested in the PS4 ecosystem. I honestly think the Pro is a must-buy, but yeah, the noise, it's really not great. Well, historically with CUH-7000 launch units, it has been a problem, but recent revisions of the Pro have seen improvement. Okay, so a while back I took a look at the 500 million PS4 Pro Special Edition, which is essentially a second generation version of the original Pro hardware, and that's codenamed CUH-7100. Now, this specific console, this beautiful console, has a blue translucent shell and some bronze accents, but the fundamental design is exactly the same as the other 7100 series machines out there. It's just got a different, more deluxe plastic shell. For the 7100 series generally, Sony made some changes to how it cooled the GDDR5 memory, but it seems to have spent some time tuning the acoustics on the fan, meaning that the newer machine ran a few degrees hotter than the launch model, but the noise level from the cooler wasn't so intrusive. In fact, I'd say it's a big improvement. This was not a game-changing revision though, in that we're still looking at a 16nm FinFET central processor. And while I noted a minimal reduction in power draw, there was nothing here to suggest any kind of fundamental revision to the silicon. And genuine hardware revisions like the PS4 Slim, they see reductions in size, heat, noise and power consumption by redesigning the console around a smaller, more power-efficient chip. The 7100 PS4 Pro doesn't do that, and neither does the new 7200 series we're looking at today. But given a choice between these machines and the launch model, there's just no contest. Both are just a bunch quieter and easier to live with. Funnily enough though, while I will be presenting measurements from the noise meter, it's not so much the loudness of the PS4 Pro under load that's the issue here, rather the pitch of the fan noise. And on the old machine, I actually find it really obnoxious, and the way the fan speed changes so rapidly and so obviously, I'll be honest, it kind of gets on my nerves. But if the CUH-7100 is an improvement, the new 7200, based on my tests today, offer further substantial improvements on top of that. Okay, so first of all, in the UK at least, the only way to get the new model for now is to buy the Red Dead Redemption bundle deal. I'm not going to go through the process of doing an unboxing video or anything like that, because basically it's a standard PlayStation 4 package here. The difference comes from the Red Dead sleeve that surrounds the standard internal white box. And yes, inside you do get a physical copy of the game, not a download code. So yeah, here's mine, still in its shrink wrap. But anyway, I'm kind of digressing here. The key thing here is that the exterior packaging does confirm we are looking at the new CUH-7200 series model. And if you're looking for a new Pro, this is what you need to be looking out for. So yeah, it's the Red Dead pack only for now, but expect 7200 series models to become more widespread in the run-up to the holiday season. Okay, so let's have a look at the new model Pro, and on first inspection, well, it's a PlayStation 4 Pro, as you would expect. The same robust matte black plastics, the same casing overall actually, the same everything. Well, with one exception. The power supply appears to have been swapped out because the old kettle-style cable power input is gone, replaced with the same figure 8 power input used on the PS4 Slim, Xbox One S and Xbox One X. This would suggest that at the very least, we've got a revised power supply in there. Everything else though, yep, it's pretty much the same as the existing Pro model. I took out the hard drive to see what's going on there, and perhaps as expected, It's a Seagate model similar to the one I found in the 500 million special edition. The only difference being it's a standard 1TB drive, not the 2TB version gifted to buyers of the limited edition console. Same supplier though. Okay, so let's move on to the stuff that matters. Thermals, noise, power consumption, and suffice to say that this is worth sticking around for, as there is improvement from model to model, and the CUH-7200 is the best Pro yet. But before we go on, one thing to bear in mind is that there can be some variance here on a per chip level, and some Pros can be quieter or indeed louder than others, and I can only really report on the hardware that I've got. God of War though, it is our title of choice for testing here, and its ability to spin up the fans is almost legendary amongst PS4 Pro users. I played the intro sections to the game and noted the areas where power consumption spiked, which is swiftly followed by the fans ratcheting up to the next level. Close up on key characters like Kratos and Atreus can push the power consumption on the Pro up to 170 watts and over, depending on the model. I just wait for this moment in one of the initial cutscenes, then pop into photo mode to freeze that scene and ensure a continuous load on the hardware. On the CUH-7000 launch machine, power draw initially hits around 170 watts, but then spikes higher after about 15 minutes, anything up to 175 to 177. Not sure what's going on there, but the CUH-7100 seemed to stabilize and maintain around 167 watts or thereabouts. Interestingly enough though, the new 7200 machine runs at 170 to 171 watts when running exactly the same content. The variance isn't exactly a big deal here compared to the prior unit. I guess it's down to a difference either at the silicon level or with the new power supply. Either way though, we can conclude that we're still on 16nm silicon, as the power draw is basically the same across all three Pros. So the scope for change on the new model, relatively small then. Thermals next. 170 watts isn't an insignificant amount of power to push through that processor, so this generates heat and the cooling system and the fan has to dissipate that. To get an idea of how hot the machine runs, I've strapped the FLIR One thermal camera to a smartphone. It's a pretty neat little device in that it combines thermal imagery with trace outlines of the subjects you're measuring, derived from a traditional camera next to the thermal one. I measure the hottest area of the skin on the console, then move around to the back to get an idea of the heat exhaust. So, when I did the CUH-7100 testing, there was something rather curious here. The Launch Pro actually runs cooler than its successor. The hottest part of the casing hits 47 to 48 Celsius, while the CUH-7100, the second gen unit, runs around 5 degrees hotter at 52 to 53 degrees. Moving on to the new model, temperatures seem to top out at around 52, so no real change from its immediate predecessor. At the rear of the machine, it's all about the exhaust, pumping out the unwanted hot air, and again, here it's the launch model that's actually the coolest, with the hottest point measuring between 59 to 61 Celsius. This rises a couple of degrees on the CUH-7100 to around 61-62. But here's the thing. On the new CUH-7200, the latest Pro, the white point on the thermal camera there sees us hitting around 66 Celsius, 67 even, and that's quite surprising. So perhaps there's been some kind of redesign to the venting. So an unexpected result then, but if it's what makes the next test as good as it is, I'll take it. Yep, we're talking acoustics now. We're going to be using a noise meter here directly above the console and to the rear, where we can expect noise to be loudest. Now, don't think of these as definitive results on how loud the hardware is, because nobody playing games is sitting right on top of their console or directly behind it. But this is all about getting relative measurements carried out in identical conditions. On top of the console, the Launch Pro delivers a substantial 50 decibels, while the CUH-7100 knocks that down to 47, which is a substantial reduction. However, the new 7200 machine goes one further, with measurements in the 44 to 45 dB range. That is another substantial improvement, even over the 7100. Clearly noticeable in fact, and a night and day improvement over the launch machine. The rear of the 7000 hits an uncomfortable 55 dB, dropping to just 50 on the 7200. However, again, the new model trumps that at 48. Now overall, I'd say there's a big quality of life improvement going from the launch model to the second gen revision, and while the stats are significantly better on the 7200 and definitely noticeable, the improvement doesn't feel as big. Regardless though, this new Pro is better. It is the quietest one I've tested. So yeah, if you are considering a new one, make sure it's a 7200 series. Okay, so let's wrap this up. The new PS4 Pro isn't really as discreet a home console as Xbox One X, despite the improvements. As far as I can tell, it's not using a high-end vapor chamber heatsink or anything like that. But man, it's a night and day improvement over the launch machine. And yeah, still a significant upgrade over the 7100. Okay, so the stats reveal that the big improvements to the Pro were made in that 7100 revision, but the new 7200 knocks off 2 to 3 decibels on the sound level, and what was already a very decent Pro is even better now, and I've got no reservations in recommending it. Right then, well, thanks so much for making it to the end of this one, if indeed you did. And yes, please do like and subscribe to support work like this. Ring the bell for instant notifications whenever a new DF video drops. And yeah, please do support the DF Patreon if you can. It really makes a difference to the content we can produce. So, for example, Sony didn't send us this new PS4 Pro. We went out and bought one because we really wanted to test it. Oh, and one more thing, our patrons get awesome quality video downloads of everything we do. Anyway, that's all from me for now. Thanks for watching.